say Star Wars is scrumptious. And this is a reference. It actually is in the dictionary. It's a reference to Will Ferrell imitating James Lipton in Inside the Actors Studio.
All right. I knew I heard it before. Oh,
where he's
yeah.
interviewing Charles Nelson Riley, and he makes up a word to describe how fantastic he is. So
Right.
that's the background for you. Yeah. So it's scrumptious.
Scrumptious. Yeah. Star Wars is scrumptious.
And I'm not hearing a lot of enthusiasm for Star Wars from Donna. Donna, your lack of interest disturbing.
What did disturb you? It caused a disturbance in the force that you were not scrumptious about Star Wars.
I have never seen a Star Wars movie.
Holy, listen out.
Holy
he must be an atheist. What can I say?
Or an alien.
You know, aliens like.
Okay, I lost my edit. Thank you very much for the word of the day, Lieutenant Maloney. Moving on to our general evaluator, Commander Storm. Would you take us into introduce your team?
Commander Storm.
Thank you, Commander Higgison. I appreciate your superior, authoritative direction today. I will introduce my evaluation team now. First, Lieutenant Maloney, will you tell us what your job is as grammarian? Is Lieutenant Maloney still here?
I think he's Darth Maloney.
The Dark Lord of the Toast. I'm the Dark Lord of the Toast.
Was it?
I'm sorry, Darth Everett was turning to the light side. I had to bring him back to the darkness. But as grammarian, I will be counting. I will be looking for good use of language. I will be looking for picturesque words, dropped endings, and as a counter, I will be looking for filler words such as so, you know, and like. And I will give you a 5 count limit, and then I will force choke you to death. So please be aware.
Wonderful. Thank you, Major Maloney. I will be timer this evening. Can I have the times of the speeches, please? So, oh, here we go. I just want to make sure this is right. Donna, are you 5 to 7? Ron, 5 to 7?
I think maybe 4 to 6 because it's a second icebreaker on whatever.
Okay. And we've got Steve. Steve, you're 3 to 4. Is that right?
Yes, Seth Lord is 3 to 4.
Perfect. And then, obviously, Eamon, you are ballot counter. You want to? So everybody, just turn your ballots to Eamon at the end of the speeches, table topics, and evaluations.
I am the ballot counter, your Seth Lord, Stephen.
Beautiful. Oh, Steve is?
Yes.
It's confusing because there's Dark and Darth. Darth is the ballot counter. Dark is the grammarian.
So I'm changing mine to Seth Lord because he's dark.
Oh, Sith Lord, Sith Lord Everett. Okay.
Sith Lord Everett.
I'm the Seth Lord because I'm his superior that way.
Got it. Got it. Beautiful. At the end of the meeting, I will be giving just a short recap of what went well and what we can improve on moving forward. So now I will turn the meeting back over to our Toastmaster to introduce our speakers. Commander Higgins.
Thank you very much, Commander Storm. So I believe we have our ranks in order. I have Dark Lord of Toast Maloney and Sith Lord Everett. Before our speakers today, I'd like to call on Lieutenant Donna Rosales for her speech. Are we ready, Donna?
I'm ready. How come you didn't ask for titles?
I apologize. What is the title of your speech, Meg?
Triplets.
Triplets. So today, Donna will be entertaining us with her speech titled Triplets.
Okay.
Fellow Toastmasters, let me tell you about the birds and the bees and the sycamore trees and triplets for you to see. One time when I was
Why are we not
still
getting a picture?
working, I came home on a September afternoon to meow, meow, meow. And I thought, what in the world is that noise? It was so loud. And I looked and I looked and I looked. Suddenly, here I see two little tiny gray kitties. They must have been all of 10 days old. Eyes were barely open, some of them only half open, crawling along the foundation. Meow, 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 meow. And I thought, where is Mama? Where is the Mama Kitty? Could not find the Mama Kitty. I picked up two little bitty kitties, not more than 3 inches long at the most. Took them in the house and put them in the sink because they were crawling with fleas. Then I went back outdoors and then I hear meow, meow, meow. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's another one. And here come one more little tiny kitty, little bit smaller than the two bigger ones, looking for Mama. According to protocol, baby kitties and baby puppies are not supposed to have baths until they're a certain age. But I ignored the regulations and said, these babies are full of fleas. So I shampooed them in the kitchen sink. Then it hit me. What am I going to feed these babies? Between 7:30 and 8 o'clock, I made a dashing trip to Petco for baby bottles and baby formula. I came home, heated up the formula, put it in the bottles, and fed the little babies, sat down in a chair, exhausted. 3 little babies crawled up my tummy to my chest, curled up and went to sleep. They became A, B, and C because I didn't have any name for babies. I went looking for Mama Kitty, could not find Mama Kitty, could not find anything that even looked like a Mama Kitty nest. So I became Mama to triplets. And I'm thinking, what is good for A? A? Now I had to decide whether we're talking about girl triplets, boy triplets, or did I have a match or a mix or what? It turned out I had 2 girls and a boy. And number 1 was A. Number 1 turned out to be a girl, so she became Abby. Abby today is about 11 years old, and she is the playground bully with everybody else. But overall, a very nice, docile kitty, as long as nobody's buying a poor attention at the same time she is. Number 2 kitty, oh my goodness, this is a girl too. And A, B, B became Barbie. She became Barbie Fat Cheeks kind of an Indian name because she had fat cheeks. And that's what I call her affectionately, not when I'm scolding her, but affectionately, she is Barbie Fat Cheeks because she has a little round face. And number 3, C. I looked. Kitty number C was a boy. Oh my goodness. He grabbed onto that bottle. He jerked, he pulled, he shook. And every time he took a swallow, the tip of his ears wiggled. He became Flipper. I know Flipper doesn't go A, B, C, but I didn't think about it until later. He could have been a Clipper, but he turned out to be a Flipper. And does he look like the girls? No. He looks like the strange kid in the neighborhood. But he's big, he's handsome. His favorite occupation is headbutting.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes up and he will butt you with his head in your face, in your chest, on your leg, because that's his way of saying, oh, I love you, Mom. And my little babies, when they were finally big enough to get out of the pen, they became lord and mistresses of the household. And they explored upstairs, downstairs, under everything. And when it came mealtime, I would fill all the bowls with that wonderful, mushy kitty food made with formula. Then I would stand and I'd go, meow, 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 meow. And you could hear the patter of 12 little feet coming at a dead run because Mama was calling them for supper. And here they come. Round the corner, sometimes they came so fast they slid around the corner. But they come in, jumped into the feed bowls. And as they grew, I told them that they had to be the mouse patrol because I live in an old house. And old houses have sneaky little doorways for sneaky little mice. So one day I hear a mouse in the wall upstairs. And I go up and I say, okay, kids, there's a mouse. Let's catch the mouse. And I get this really weird look. It says, mouse? What is a mouse? Never heard of a mouse. Don't know what a mouse is. Nothing happened on the second floor. Then I heard the mouse on the first floor. And I said, kids, there's a mouse here. And I get this blank look. Mouse? What is a mouse? Nobody caught the mouse. In the interim, I had another kitty that came into the basement with an eye infection. And he lived in the basement. But he wasn't as old as the triplets. And I didn't think much about it. And I went down in the basement and I said, Blue, there's a mouse. I'm going to make the mouse patrol now down in the basement. And the next morning I went down the basement steps and there sat Blue with the mouse between his feet with a very pleased look. And he said, look, I caught the mouse. It wasn't a very big mouse, but I caught the mouse. I brought the mouse upstairs and I showed it to everybody who missed the mouse. They didn't have a clue. They had not a clue at all as to what a mouse was. Delicious. And as a result, nobody has ever had a mouse. I haven't had a mouse in the house since, but I think they probably got the smell of the rest of the cats and decided that this was not a very safe place to be looking for winter quarters, because that's the only time they come in is when it gets cold. And wouldn't you know, today my triplets have turned into sextuplets, which means I now have 6 of them. Nobody's related except the triplets. They all have the same mama, me. But the rest of them, I am the foster mama. And if anybody wants any of my children, I might be tempted to allow one up for adoption. And they're very nice. They don't meow. There's not a lot of sibling rivalry, only occasionally. But that's true of any family situation. There is sibling rivalry. And we do have sibling rivalry here on occasion. But I don't think anybody ever heard the story of my triplets, but they were so little and so skinny and so hungry and so full of fleas. The fleas would have had united when they were babies. They could have carried them away and I would never have seen them again. Madam Toastmaster?
Thank you very much. So take a moment and send some notes if you'd like to in the chat. Have we done that before where we could provide
Yes.
some feedback? Okay.
I'm guessing it will work better to email your feedback to Meg so that she can pass it along to Donna later.
Sounds good.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing your story about your triplets. And next up, before we call on our next speaker, though, I think we have an opening for Evaluator 3. It doesn't appear that Prem was able to join us today. Do we have a volunteer to evaluate Sith Lord Everett?
I can do that if you need it.
Thank you very much, George. So stepping in for Evaluator 3 will be George. Do you have a preference for a rank? You want to be a
I'm sure. I think it's longer than
captain or?
that. But I didn't see any cards or anything.
Well, the lack of picture, I'd have to be on the dark side.
But I'm sure that was mine.
Oh, okay.
I think we need
So
Edson.
Maybe not.
do we need a stormtrooper?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can feel your hatred coming out.
Like half of our club is evil. What's going on?
The lured to the dark side. Oh no.
You could make him a Sith.
I'm like my
acolyte
oldest
or
friend,
a Sith
chaotic
assassin.
neutral. I'm
Are you
chaotic neutral, like the cats.
Are you in the clouds with Lando Calrissian? You're neutral. Okay, so our next speaker today. Are we Admiral Keelhaul today?
Admiral, yeah. Admiral, I thought he was a captain.
We-
No, he got promoted. When he went to
There's-
the dark side, they promoted him.
There's two of them. Steve and I cloned Admiral Keelhaul with dark side technology.
Cloning, yes. Very prevalent in the Empire.
I don't know how we did it. It's hard to explain, so we won't.
So, Admiral, what is your speech today?
My triplets.
Can I get a piece of scratch paper?
So today, Admiral Keelhaul II will be regaling us about his triplets. Go ahead, Admiral.
When I was a wee lad, a friend of mine bought a book that advertised soon to be a major motion picture. And one night he called and said that he had his father go to Overland Park and buy a mass of tickets, and I was one of the chosen kids who got to go to the premiere of this new movie, which I knew nothing about. Upon arrival, I was surprised to see miles of people in line, and even got to taunt one kid from school because he was so far back in line, we were sure that he would never get to see the movie. At the Glenwood Theater in Dolby Sound on a
All right.
large curved screen, I saw a movie that changed my life, at least for that night. But soon, I was finding myself constantly taunted as that kid who's crazy about Star Wars. And soon I began to realize it was my fate that I would turn to the dark side to get exact revenge on these evil children who taunted me for my love of Star Wars. One day, traipsing around the yard, singing the Birds and the Bees song, I saw 3 puppies or kittens or something. I called them tribbles.
Of course you did.
There was a boy tribble. I called him Captain Kirk. Another boy tribble without much personality, I called him Mr. Spock. And a little girl tribble I named Lieutenant Uhuru.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now I was clearly on the other side of the equation of fandom, a complete heretic. I went to Walmart and bought some baby bottles and I know that you're not supposed to feed
After
expose
midnight.
them to light, but I did all of these things anyway. Soon I had trouble everywhere. I tested, thank you, Donna. My plan, I tested on the mailman and was horrified that he had been reduced to skeletal remains before he even hit the ground. These tribbles were vicious and fluffy, hungry and sneaky, ruthless and clever, snuggly and cute. They were scrumptious to my adolescence. And I'm proud to say that the Star Wars legions of fans have been decimated at will by myself, leaving some survivors here on Earth. Beware of taunting children, because someday they may come back with some evil grudge that you have no clue what it's about or when it happened. And the army of tribbles will descend upon you and take you out like Captain Kirk took out Captain Picard. Madam
Good job, Admiral. Is that the Star Trek Admiral Keelhaul or Star Wars Admiral Keelhaul?
Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty Keelhaul.
So take a moment and jot down some feedback for Ron, and you can send that either in the chat or via email. And so we let's see here. The the Star Wars genre, when my son was born, he was very soon indoctrinated into the genre. He had toys from the time he was a toddler on about the different characters. They had I can't remember what they were called, but there was a new collection at that time that had come out, and they were for younger kids, and they were short and kind of exaggerated features for the characters. And my husband, being the collector, decided he was going to buy them up, and as they came out with more of them, he just kept collecting them. And at first it was like, well, do we just collect them, or we can actually open them up and let him play with them? You know, he's 3. And well, practicality went out, and we did open up, and he was allowed to play with those collectibles. Now they're in his box, his childhood box. So when he now he's 15 now, so those toys have been set aside. So when he's older and he has children, he'll be able to share those with his children. Now, who knows what the Star Wars storyline will be at that time. Now, moving on to our third speaker today, Sith Lord Everett will be talking about a toast for all of us for all times. Sith Lord, are you ready?
Alexa, continue.
I didn't hear that. What did you say?
Quiet down. Quiet down, everyone. Hey, quiet. Alexa, stop. Hello, everyone. I'd like everyone to raise a glass.
That'd be difficult. We'll get
I'd
it.
like to make a toast to Club 229, and all of its members. Toastmasters Dundee. It's been here continuously,
Yeah.
even through the coronavirus, for 78 years and 3 days.
Yes.
And 3 days. That's right. We started May 1st, 1942. And through that time, with our meetings, we've learned how to help people communicate better through evaluations, through speeches, and through impromptu and table topics. Thousands of people came through to become better listeners and communicators and leaders. And think of how many more tens of thousands of people became better through the ripple effect. I think people at home now are becoming a little more aware of how important that is these days. And I love our club, Toastmasters Dundee 229, because of all you, because of the members, because you guys make it fun to learn.
Hand's getting tired.
Mark, district director, I think he spends more time with Toastmasters than he does at home. He always has some wonderful stories to tell, and lots of friends he brings into it through Toastmasters. Donna. Donna, you are the most reliable person I know. When I went through the books about 3 months ago, they went back 40 years. And they were one of the most meticulous books I've ever seen done in my life. And your sense of humor is the most amazing I've ever seen. Meg, your information and your anecdotes I could listen to all day long. I just love that stuff. Ron, your antics and your puppets and your costumes keep us laughing all the time. Amos.
Amen.
Amen, sorry. Your ceaseless volunteering. Sure, I can do that. Doesn't matter what it is. Oh yeah, I can do that one. Any role, even a pirate winch, which you played very, very well, by the way. Had a hard time believing it was you sometimes. Andrew, calm, collective, always informative, always inspiring, your speeches and your evaluations both. You always giving us your best. And George, so glad you're joining us because you never know what to expect. All your experiences bring so much to it, and our mentors, both Katie and Prim, you do so much for us. You give us so much of your all. And I have to thank Jessica. As our president, and you do so much. I've realized, when I went online, I want everyone to go online and see our website. It's amazing, just amazing. And you do so much for us. Thank you so much. So again, raise your glasses. That the Toastmaster meeting will continue as long as we're needed, and that we continue laughing as long as we can, and always have the best snacks in all the Toastmasters clubs. Hear, hear.
Hear, hear.
Thank you very much, Sith Lord Everett. That was much appreciated. And again, a reminder to provide your feedback either in the chat or via email. Okay.
And they can vote on the best speaker now.
Yes, please remember to cast your vote for best speaker, and you can do that via the chat to our ballot counter. Steve?
Lord Steve.
Okay. And before we move on to our evaluation portion of our meeting, Star Wars, all of the movies, as a matter of fact, have been nominated for the Academy Awards. Except, so at least one category, every single movie. The least amount of nominations was Revenge of the Sith, and the most was A New Hope. There were 10 nominations for A New Hope, and they won 6 Academy Awards for Best Costume Design, Best Film Editing, Best Original Score, Best Production Design, Best Sound Mixing, and Best Visual Effects. In fact, they have been nominated, all except for Revenge of the Sith. All Star Wars movies have been nominated for Best Visual Effects. It was a game changer back in the 70s. So with that, I will call on our general evaluator, Commander Storm.
Table topics first. Don't forget table topics.
Table topics.
Thank you. Snuggled right in between our speakers and our general evaluation, I'm going to call on Major Barr to test our impromptu speaking.
Well, let me first say there's no way I'm a major or a minor because as a chaotic neutral, I do not take sides and therefore I cannot be ranked. That being said, today, in addition to being May the 4th day, it is also National Candied Orange Peel Day and National Bird Day, whether that's collecting birds or giving the bird. It's a national holiday. And I would like, first of all, to ask, does anybody have a favorite bird? Bird is the word. Does one have a favorite?
Yes, I do.
Hey,
The
Steve,
The albatross.
can you give us the bird and tell us why?
It's a wandering albatross. Because when I was, excuse me, when I was working on the ships out in the ocean, it's a huge bird. It has a wingspan of almost 7 feet.
Mhm.
And would fly next to the boat, right next to you, about 2-3 feet away, and never had to flap its wings. It would fly next to you for hours at a time. And it was just the most beautiful, majestic bird that I've ever seen. And I'm a big birder. All the different birding groups came on, well, all three of the big ones. And that became my favorite bird of all time. It's just a majestic bird. If you ever have a chance to see one, I highly recommend doing it. The end.
Meg, you're on mute.
Oh, that moment of silence has been brought to you by the National Hearing Council. My next question is about National Candied Orange Peel Day. My question is how? Why? Anyone want to help with that? Why there is candied orange peel and how it came to be?
Ron is
Don,
raising his hand.
oh, Donna just said, I can tell you what I did with it. And so I'm
Oh.
going to pick on Donna. Go ahead, Donna.
I was in a nursing home, which is now closed, but there was a gentleman there that said, "Oh, I love candied orange peel. I love candied. I love orange gumdrops. I love everything orange." So I asked him if he would like some cookies made with candy orange peel or candied orange gumdrops. And he said, "Oh, yes, please." I made him cookies. He was in seventh heaven. I've never made them since. I probably will never make them again. But I made one gentleman very, very happy with candied orange peel.
Okay.
Sounds scrumptious. Scrumptious.
Scrumptious. Well, that
Wow.
was close.
There we go. All right. My next question sort of has to do with today's theme. My question is, what is the first sci-fi book or movie that you saw that was not part of a franchise? So no Star Wars, no Star Trek, no Back to the Future, no Planet of the Apes, but pretty much anything else. What was the first science fiction experience that you went wow to? Anybody besides Ron, since he talked already?
Do you have other Star Wars questions you're going to ask?
Probably not.
Okay, I can take a stab at this.
Okay, use Ron's fork.
I'm going to cheat a little bit because this is technically part of a franchise, although I didn't remember it at the time that it was. I believe it was the late 90s, and I'm sure I'd watched sci-fi movies before that, but I watched the Lost in Space movie. I know it was based on a TV show. And my naive self, I thought, wow, this is great. This is about time travel and being lost. And you had a great cast. You had Gary Oldman. You had the scrumptious Matt LeBlanc, fresh off his Friends debut.
Oh, God. Oh, that reminds me of a really horrible one.
And you had William Hurd. Later on, I realized that I was mistaken in this, as this was not a good movie with not a good plot, with many plot holes that did not hold up with the test of time. And I never saw the original TV show. I have not watched the new TV show, but that led me to believe that outside of franchise sci-fi, that maybe sci-fi isn't all it's cracked up to be. Thank you.
All right. Does anybody else want to conquer that? I'm a big fan of Asimov and Jules Verne, but my first one was a small little one called A Trip to the Moon. Trip to the Moon, and there's two of them. One is the one by Georges Méliès, which is a silent movie about Jules Verne's trip to the moon, and the other, A Trip to the Moon, which is a listing of ways you can go to the moon that was written by the original Cyrano de Bergerac. Does anybody else have a sci-fi book or movie that really touched them and they really think that everybody else needs to see it and we've never heard of?
I'll talk about one.
Sure.
This was a book that was actually, this is very recent that I read this. It's a book that was recommended to me by a member of my other Toastmasters club. I was asked in that club a table topic about, I don't even remember what the topic was, but I answered it by talking about going back in time by transporting consciousness to a younger version of yourself or a person from long ago. And then it turned out that there's actually a book about this. It's called Recursion. It just came out last year, the year before. And I apparently was told about it before it became big because I checked it out from the Omaha library. No wait, got to read it right away. I think I read it in a day or two. I read it very quickly. It was a fast read. It was, I thought, very well written. It was interesting content. There could have been a little bit more characterization of the characters, but the plot was interesting and the ideas that it brought up were very interesting. And I really enjoyed reading it a lot. And when I was on the library website a couple of months ago looking for books, I saw that there was a wait list for it now that was around 10 people. So I got in right before it became popular and I really enjoyed reading it. And if anyone has a chance to read it, I would recommend it. It's called Recursion.
All right. Well, we had Steve give us the bird. Donna pushed candied orange peels on us. Eamon was lost in space. And Jessica suffered from recursion. So everybody vote for your favorite table topic person, and I will hand this back to the Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Meg. So as I cast my vote. Okay, so moving on to our general, our evaluation portion of our meeting. I'm going to call on Commander Storm to carry on.
Thank you, Commander Higgison. Now we will go over the evaluations of the speeches. First, I'll just quickly give some times of the speeches and table topics. Donna, your speech was 10 minutes and 55 seconds. Ron, yours was 4 minutes and 35 seconds. And Steve, yours was 5 minutes and 19 seconds. On table topics, I apologize, Steve, I somehow missed yours. Donna, yours was 49 seconds. Eamon, 1 minute 33 seconds. And Jessica was 1 minute 22 seconds. Now, as our first evaluator who will be evaluating Donna, we'll have Admiral Coder, Jessica, evaluating Donna.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Donna. I really appreciate your willingness to step outside your comfort zone a bit and give a speech online. The thing that stood out most about this speech for me was your vocal variety. I thought that was the highlight of the speech. You used your pace, you used pauses, you used variety in your tone, you even had some meowing. I noticed that your voice took on a different quality when you were talking in the beginning about birds and bees and sycamore trees. It had a bouncier quality to it, and then at other points it had a more serious or darker quality, like when you were talking about all of the fleas on the cats. I thought that vocal expressiveness added a lot to the speech. That was very well done. I also, being a cat person, loved the content of the speech. I loved hearing about the cats. I loved how they each had their own personality. I loved the literary techniques you used in referring to the cats as your children, personification of the cats. I thought that was excellent. And I found it very humorous when you tried to give away your children at the end of the speech, trying to give away your children to us. I thought was very, very humorous. One thing that I will note, you basically gave us 2 speeches. As Andrew indicated with the length, it was long enough to be 2 speeches. And I think it could have been. You had the part about the triplets, which was a cohesive speech in itself. And then after you were done telling us about the triplets, you started talking about Mouse Patrol, which was also very amusing, but felt like a completely separate speech. So that would be my main recommendation there for the length, is to split it into 2 different speeches, because I think you had a clear dividing line there with talking about the triplets and talking about mouse control. Another thing that I noticed that I would challenge you on is trying to incorporate some gestures. It's a lot more difficult to do gestures online, and especially if you're sitting down, it can be harder. But as I'm attempting to demonstrate in my evaluation here, it is possible to include some gestures even when you're sitting down. The cat probably added an additional challenge to your gestures as well, but I think you could still manage to at least use one hand to gesture a bit from time to time during the speech. I really enjoyed your comfort level in talking to us, the content of the speech. I did notice that you tended to look towards the camera, so that was good. And again, I just really loved the vocal variety and all the stories you had to tell. I would hope that you will continue to tell us more of these stories, as I know that you will. I really appreciate hearing your speeches, Donna, and I especially appreciate it when they're about one of my favorite topics of cats.
Okay, thank you, Jessica, for that evaluation. Next, we have Meg evaluating Ron's speech.
I'm going to stand up, yeah, or at least I'm going to try to. Okay. Well, first of all, I want to point out I am wearing my Rick and Morty windbreaker for the holiday. And now we are going to talk about Ron Kroenke's speech. Darth Kroenke. Now, first of all, you will notice that this again is an incredibly impromptu speech by Ron. Ron's speech works on 2 levels. First, for the average person, the story is a cute story about revenge and a small child's love of movies. But on another level, This is a movie buff's movie guide. Notice that, first of all, he starts by using Donna's speech and says it's about triplets. He then uses a song that Donna used. When it comes to, he reminds me of the Tom Lehrer song about Nikolai Lubachevsky, the great mathematician. The chorus of which goes, plagiarize, let no one else's work evade your eyes. Remember why the good Lord made your eyes, and don't shade your eyes, but plagiarize, plagiarize, plagiarize. Only always remember to call it research. His first references was the triplets he called tribbles. Now, for anybody who watches Star Wars, one of the favorite episodes outside of Piece of the Action is The Trouble with Tribble. And Star Trek. Donna corrected me. She's absolutely right. Star Trek. And notice that he named them after the characters. Captain Kirk. I'm sure that Tribble paused dramatically a lot when it made noise. Spock, because it was emotionless, and the female was Lieutenant Uhura. Always got hit on by Kirk and was always told to drop dead. He then turned the tribbles into the personalities of gremlins being fed after midnight. So there's another movie reference. He then talked about revenge. And of course, the problem was, I can't remember the right verb, I'm sure Ron can, but Khan, the wrath of Khan, how he found Kirk tiresome, irksome. Trying to think of what the proper verb was, but he found him tiring. And so Ron used this particular device to give someone who has very little knowledge about Star Wars and Star Trek a intrigue. Yes, I know. He said I mispronounced Khan. It's not Khan, it's Khan. But be that as it may. So he gave you ideas on what to look up for your next sci-fi adventure. All in all, it was a good story in itself. And for people who are into this, it was an education for the uninitiated. A great short story, a great speech. Thank you, Ron. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Meg, for that evaluation. Everyone turn in your ballots to.
Still have George.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I apologize, Steve. You're right. Next up, we will have George evaluating Steve's speech.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and of course, Steve. Always love to listen to Steve's presentations, and this was a masterful one. Love the opening. Camera came on, and there's Steve, dressed very well, holding a glass of wine. Now, always willing to drop whatever I'm doing to toast and raise a glass of wine. I really appreciate it and love the opening. Also love the fact that he backed the camera off. Now, backing the camera off let him stand up, which initiated some gestures. It initiated the eye contact. It emphasized the eye contact, and it really added a great deal to the presentation. And I recommend, if at all possible, anybody who's doing a presentation try that. The speech was excellent. As I said, the eye contact, the hand gestures were there because the camera was backed off. The voice was very, very good. The rate was excellent. It was slow. It was dramatic. He spoke in groups of 4 or 5 words, and then there was a pause. It was an excellent, excellent use of voice. Now, you might want to vary that a little bit, raise the volume a little bit, or just do something to break the pace. I love the way he brought the audience into the presentation. Bringing the audience into the presentation always makes the speech more dramatic. It increases the attention of the audience. Everybody loves to be part of the presentation, and they immediately start listening to where they will be in the presentation. So it adds a great deal to that. And what I noticed today, which I think we might consider, would be there were a couple mics on during the presentation. Now, that added some feedback to the speaker. When something was said, you could hear the laughs. So I think that brought a little bit of the audience reaction in, and I think that helps with the speaker feeling like he's addressing an audience. So I'd advise doing that with the sole thing to keep in mind is not to speak. Don't interrupt the speaker with comments or talk back to the speaker. But I'd recommend leaving the microphone on during presentations just to let the speaker know when something goes over, when there's a laugh, when there is a gasp or some kind of audible reaction from the audience. I think that would increase the presentation. Love the opening. He wrapped it all up. He again raised the glass and toasted the club. So all in all, excellent presentation, and I always look forward to his next presentation. Mr. Toastmaster.
Very interesting point there, George. I thought that was definitely noteworthy. I never would have thought of that to leave the speakers on, but you're right. If we hear a laugh or a gasp or something, it is helpful to create that momentum in your speech. The times for those evaluations, we had Jessica at 2 minutes and 40 seconds, Meg 3 minutes and 43 seconds, and George, you were 2 minutes and 48 seconds. So great
Take a
job.
vote, please.
What's that?
I'll take a vote, please.
Yeah, and then let's. I need to do that as well. Thank you, Steve. Can I have Eamon? Would you please tell us your report as grammarian? Was there any words that stuck out? Is Eamon alive? The Sith Lord has renegade.
Yeah, yes. Standing by.
He's on low battery.
No.
No sound. Sound's not coming through.
Everybody see that?
Saw it, didn't hear it.
You didn't hear it?
No. I had the same problem when I shared from my computer. Apparently the sound didn't come through when I shared either.
That was hilarious.
You'll just have to make the sound effects for us next time.
Can everybody hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so grammarian report. Starting off with Donna, I like the mama kitty, or sorry, the rhyming with birds, bees, and sycamore trees. I thought that was very creative. It's not a mama kitty, it would be technically a mama cat, Donna, so I dinged you there. Ron, I liked your use of the word wee lad and your use of tribble. You did have one subject-verb disagreement when you meant my plan I tested. I think you meant I tested my plan. Meg had 2 ums, 2 ands, and a so. Jessica, I like the term vocal expressiveness. Andrew, I caught about 4 ums. George, I caught an Sith Lord Everett, you said peoples when I think you meant to say people. You mispronounced my name as Amos. I think you said collective when you meant collected. And you had about 9 ums. Use of the word of the day, Steve 1, Ron 1, Meg 1, and myself. Katie, you had one, a like, an and, quite a few ums. Do you want to know the total or? And you did, I've been dinged for this too. I think you kind of clicked your tongue a little bit, particularly in one of your presentations. So something to watch out for. And Meg, you did have one word pronunciation. Hold on, let me show you how you actually pronounce that.
Human.
So for your, did everybody hear that one?
No.
No, I didn't hear it. Can't hear it.
Just say it. Just say it, Eamon. Say it for us.
That's my report.
Thank you, Dark Lord of the Toast.
My fiance also just peeked in at me to make sure everything was okay. So well done, everybody.
Eamon, I think you should pick a prestigious award recipient among the people. Call it the George Lucas Award for the best person who performed the best in their category.
Oh.
Oh, you just took my my report.
Well, that would be worse dialogue, but I don't think anybody had terrible dialogue, so.
All right. Well, thank you for that report, Dark Lord of the Toast. Now, in my evaluation of the meeting, I thought, as always, we had some laughs, we had a good time. Commander Higgison, I thought that was a great idea, and having Star Wars their theme tonight. That was really fun. I enjoyed that.
Perfect.
Excellent speeches, everyone. I thought all three speeches were unique and creative. I enjoyed listening to them. I also just want to throw out a thanks to Jessica as our president, as always, getting everything out to us and keeping us informed of how the meeting's gonna, all the things that we need to do and things like that. I guess the one thing that I think we can just continue to keep an eye on is just making sure that we're within the allotted times of our speeches. Obviously not a super big deal, but it is something that we look for in Toastmasters. So just something to keep an eye on and work on. And obviously I'm a huge proponent of this as well, but working on the crutch words. I use them a lot. I think we all continue to work on that, just something we can all improve on. But excellent meeting, everyone. Great to see everyone as always. And I will turn it back over to our Toastmaster, Commander Higgison.
Thank you very much, Commander Storm. With that, we are on to the awards. Do we have our recognitions ready?
We do.
Okay. Go ahead, Sith Lord.
We do. Well, the force was with everybody today. We have, for our evaluator, George Lucas. Tabletop, which is no surprise. Everyone always votes for the princess. Princess Jessica won. And for best speaker today, drum roll. Alexa, drum roll, please.
Dun, dun,
Okay.
dun, 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 dun.
That's Steve.
Yay.
Thank you, Commander.
Thank you very much, Sith Lord. And I appreciate being able.
Somebody using the dark force on you?
Okay. I'll wrap up the meeting. I promise I'll wrap up the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for playing along with the theme today. You've made it much more than I could have imagined. And I have fun every week with this club, and that is just one of the best qualities that you have to share, is that it's a lot of fun, a lot of learning, but the fun keeps us all coming back. With that, may the 4th be with you. Live long and prosper.
Before everybody goes, and I guess before the president picks the other people for next week, you go to the website, guys. All you have to do is tell your friends or anybody to say, type in Toastmasters International, and when they do that, Jessica's got it. So Club 229 is right there. It's the only one there in big letters. So just tell them to type on that, and they can come right to us. And our webpage has everything on it. So all you got to do is tell somebody, type in Toastmasters International, and they will come right to our club. And it has so much information. It's really cool. Has every format we use, has everything. It's great. Did a great job. Thank you very much. I will be going to Washington D.C. this week for 2 weeks to use the force on a couple of people there. So I won't be around for a couple weeks, guys.
Do you have enough face masks?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Turn your lights on, Haler.
Just put it all in one. The Darth Lord's mask. Healer.
I gotta tell you, to be honest with you, I'm trying to make a statement, so I was going to dress up as a zombie because I didn't want to be political at all, and I wanted to do global warming. But I also was going to be in the Grim Reaper because I wanted to do the same thing for global warming, that we're going to kill ourselves if we don't change the global warming aspect, you know. But then somebody did it in Florida a couple of nights ago, and they had it on the national news if you saw it. So we didn't do that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jessica. I'm Princess.
Oh, little plug from me. Star Wars related. Does anybody watch the animated shows like Rebels or the Clone Wars at all?
Yeah, every
I
night.
have.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think they're really good. The Clone Wars is on season 7, so if you haven't seen it, it ends today. So it's actually really good. So check it out.
They might be playing it right now in my house.
And also the new one, Mandolin. How do you say it?
Mandalorian.
That's really good.
That one should be coming out in October, I believe, the second season.
Yeah. Chaotic neutral again.
Okay. So Admiral Coder, I believe it is time for you to command the room and call us out for the day.
Yes, absolutely. I just wanted to share one thing I found when Meg was talking earlier about being chaotic neutral. I looked this up. So there's your Dungeons and Dragons alignments for different Star Wars characters, for those of you who are familiar with the alignments. So Meg, you're Han Solo.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
And then I also had, for thought of the day, I have 2 of them from Star Wars. Of course, do or do not, there is no try. I think that's very fitting for Toastmasters and a very well-known phrase. And then also very fitting for Toastmasters is another quote from Yoda: always pass on what you have learned.
That's the greatest line from any movie. Do or do not. There's no try.
Absolutely. So with that in mind, knowing that you must do or do not, who will do in filling a role next week?